Hello. Today I am making a Pot Limit Omaha video playing on global poker, playing two tables of 5 cent, 10 cent, no limit, $1 max buy-in. We've got a pretty lively game on table 2 here. Just sat down, played the big blind, and so this is my second hand, and already we've seen a lot of people limping in, so looks like a pretty good game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We are playing full ring. I think that practicing full ring play online can be very beneficial for people who are looking to play live. For live poker is almost exclusively full ring, and you do get some sort of different dynamics in a full ring game as opposed to the more common 6 max. So it does require a little more patience. You do have to play a slightly different style in a full ring game. And I'm looking forward to going into some of the differences as we play today. I am playing just one table, which a lot of people don't really have the patience for that. I'm also waiting for action at a second table, so we should get maybe some shorthanded play there. But it is important to be able to play just one table to and it gives you an opportunity to study your opponents a little more in depth and focus more on adapting to them. Obviously, there is a role for multi-tabling, and it's not like you can't adapt to your opponents when playing more than one table. So table 2, I've got 9988. Pretty decent hand, but it goes raise 3-bet, cold 4 all in for 15 big blinds. So I am just going to fold with the door open to the early position, first in raiser, not to the 3-better, but the first in player could raise, which would not be very good for me. So table 1, it looks like my opponent might be a little bit more of a recreational player. You can see that he's limping in a heads-up game, which is, it's not that this can't be a viable strategy, but it's much more common for a recreational player to just be calling a lot than a regular. A regular is usually going to adopt more of a razor fold style. Kind of interesting that this player, American Eagle, chose to 3-bet his double-suited jacks against an early position raiser in a full ring game, which I don't think that would be the right play. And then also he continues on the flop with sort of middle open-ended, kind of dubious as well here. Getting a third player now on table 1, and another half stack, which is generally a good sign. Usually regulars are going to buy in for 100 big blinds. So obviously the goal in poker is to play people who are making mistakes, and especially serious mistakes. So any sort of indication that might be the case, very good. So table 1, just going to check back the turn. I don't think my opponent would continue with a draw, but he might pay off if he rivers it. And definitely gonna go all in here. I'm losing only 2 very unlikely pocket aces. Some players are so loose that you can't actually bet the turn because they'll call with a draw, but that's very unusual even for recreational players. So you can see C cross saw rebuys for 7-11. So this is again sort of an indication that he's a recreational player. Any sort of odd buy amount like that, where they're buying in for an odd number, is might indicate that it's their entire account balance. So, and this guy PLO also bought in for an odd amount like that. Because there are no HUDs on Global Poker, you do have to focus more on making notes and also just thinking about the situations. So for that reason, I don't recommend playing too many tables, because if you don't have any reads and you're just playing a bunch of tables, you're just gambling. You're hoping good things happen. But the whole point with poker is to find edges by adapting to your opponents. So kind of unlucky to lose that hand. So if your opponents play very passively, then and they don't bluff, then you can lay down medium strength hands when they bet. Or if they're very aggressive and they bluff a lot, then you might want to take some more passive way ahead, way behind lines, especially on lockdown boards. So your opponent's play styles are going to dictate your play, which is why it's important to observe your opponents and adapt to their different play styles. And you don't want to make too many assumptions about your opponents that aren't substantiated by evidence. Every player has a unique, idiosyncratic approach to poker, so you shouldn't make any assumptions about what that approach is. Instead, you should observe them carefully, and you should adapt on the basis of the evidence, on the tendencies that you observe when you're playing against them. So I am going to take some notes and label my opponents. Yellow is recreational player, and the more information you accumulate on your opponents, the easier it's going to be to table select for the most profitable games when you're starting a session. And then eventually, once you have detailed notes on more players at a limit, you can add in more tables, because you don't need to observe them as carefully because you've already got information on their play. So you can see that Buster here binds in for 100 big blinds and also does not post under the gun. So these are 2 indications that he's probably a regular. So I use yellow for a recreational player and red for regular. And the SS note is for short stack. On table 2, King, King, 10, Deuce. This is a decent hand, pretty strong hand, but I'm not going to raise out of the big blind. It would be a mistake to do so. Better to just check, see the flop. I've got a positional disadvantage, and this is not really the sort of hand you want to be raising with. Especially four-way, you're going to end up with a lot of situations like this where you've got a medium strength made hand, one pair kings over pair, and it's not strong enough to value bet. And I'm going to fold to this bet in a four-way pot. Only got 2 nutouts. Table 1, turning 7's full. I'm going to bet. I have the third nuts, beaten only by pocket 4s and pocket kings. And I'm going to value bet the river. Very important to value betting strong hands is basically the key to beating loose games. Especially if your opponents have a looser, more passive play style, you can really play into their strategy if you're bluffing a lot or betting weak hands simply for protection. Which isn't to say that you should never make a bet that is strictly for protection, but just in general, the main focus of your strategy should be to value bet with strong hands. That's how you win in loose games, by folding weak hands that are going to end up in difficult situations, unprofitable situations, and by playing strong hands aggressively and going for value. It's generally quite good when you get shorthanded games like this against looser players, like 3 or 4-handed or heads-up games. You get a lot more hands per hour, and that's going to magnify your win rate. Magnify. Just because if you have a certain win rate per 100 hands and you're playing 150 hands an hour, or you're playing 100 hands an hour instead of 60, then you're going to be making almost twice as much money. So also if there's a higher ratio of recreational players to regulars, then you don't have to split the profits essentially with the other rigs. Table 2, this hand's pretty weak, ace, queen, 9, 6. You really want hands that work together, hands that are highly connected. Yeah, this hand is highly disconnected, so there is an okay suit, and it could be close between opening and folding if it was folded to me on the button, but especially after the cutoff, open limps, it's basically a decision now between folding and over limping. And this is not the sort of hand you want to play four-way. You're very unlikely to make a strong holding with it, which is essentially what you're trying to do in a four-way pot. This player American Eagle was playing on table 2, he was the guy who threw that double-suited jacks against the first in razor. And he open limped another hand. So we don't really have a very strong read on him. But you can see he does opt to post to enter the game, as does Jolly Trolley Man. Kings, you're in the big blind. I think this is a little closer of a decision than the earlier ones. I'm still going to check. We do have better connectivity. And flopping top set. Just going to go ahead and bet it pretty big. Pretty good chance to get action on this board, especially a lot of these players will probably call with weak draws, maybe as weak as a gut shot or Queen Jack 10 sort of hands. So obviously only a 9, 10, Jack, or Ace can give somebody a hand that beats me. I suppose a Queen or a 5 could also complete quad. So I get a Jack of Hearts. It's a very interesting card. I have now a set and a flush draw, and might end up check raising. Probably going to end up check raising. No. I'm going to call and fold the river unimproved. So against a straight on the turn, I'd have like 43% equity, although it's possible nut hearts could be out there, in which case my odds of improving would be much worse. And, 10-9. Yeah. Oh, he made. Yeah, so against the straight, it's a lot more profitable to just call and try to improve on the river. Table 2, I open the button. It's a pretty strong hand. I'm just going to check back the flop. My hand's not really strong enough to value bet. It's a decent number of turn cards I wouldn't mind seeing, like a 7 of spades or a queen. So, yeah. Table 1, king, queen, jack 4, double suited. Let me call this video. All right. Well, I guess I'll end the session there. So hopefully you enjoyed my video and some of the situations that popped up. I feel the games on Global Poker are very good, especially compared to, say, ACR, which a lot of even the micro stakes games are ring infested. I've only played the PLO 4 and the PLO 10 so far, so I can't say what the quality of the PLO 20 and above games are. But yeah, hopefully you liked my video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe for more free PLO content. Thank you.